Hello, everyone. It's Kathleen at Kathleen Elise, and welcome to episode 15 of Level Up Your English at Kathleen Elise. So, this is our last episode for 2023, and it's actually turned into part 2 of the midnight live stream. So, where we talked about basically jargon. I call it specialized vocabulary for the business, American business world, but it's definitely jargon. Um, so definitely watch the midnight episode if you weren't able to make it, and get all caught up with that. And what we do is, I'm not just giving you terms. You've heard many of these terms before, but what I'm trying to do for you is to help you understand what the terms mean and where they came from, how they started, the background of it, the little history, so that you have a much deeper understanding, number one, of the terms and why they are related, why they're used in the situations that they're used. I'm taking that off, me and the glare. But also to really, so often I find that if I'm able to understand the stuff behind the things I'm learning, if it's a word, I like to learn the etymology of it. So, when did it start? Why did it start? What are its origins? And how did it develop? Because by understanding that, it really helps me to dig into the word and to really let my brain assimilate the word, not just memorize it, and just have this random thing in my head, and hopefully I'm going to use it right. By doing this and understanding the background of the words I'm using, of the rules of the language, all the grammar stuff, if I'm stuck on something, this approach really helps me to be able to learn it and make sense of it. And especially if I go to many different sources, then I can piece together, okay, well, this source made sense to me here, but I still have this other piece that doesn't make sense to me. So, all right, if I look it up over here, oh, wait, that piece now makes sense from this other source, and that other piece makes sense from this other source. So I can piece it all together, and then it makes sense to me, and it's actually my knowledge now. Excuse me. So there you go. That's why I'm doing this. All right, so let me put my glasses on. So we have a lot of terms to get through, and I'm going to be looking over here because this is where my notes are. I tried to switch them. I don't know. Does that make it easier? I don't know. They're at the bottom of the page, and so it might not make any difference at all. So anyway, here we go. So, all right, just a quick reference. In the earlier live stream, I talked about jargon that deals with employee behavior and kind of where the behavior started and therefore how it relates to this term or these terms. And then I also talked about management. Now that means management practices, management style, or decisions of management and the consequences thereof. So these terms that I go over as far as the management end of things, it really actually, they're really actually the behavioral consequences of the decisions that from management or the management styles. And then the third thing I went over is just three quick things were work-life balance. I was surprised that I didn't find more terms relating to work-life balance. I'm sure they're out there. I just didn't happen to find them, but it surprised me because everybody talks about work-life balance and how can I make my family work and my job work together and, live a life outside of my job. And especially here in the United States, I don't know about many other countries. I know about some, and they don't work as long and hard as we do. Um, they it's just a very intense atmosphere here in the office world in America. So anyway, so we're going to go through, I think I counted up, I forget what I put in the description, but there's over 20, I want to say 32 different terms here to go over. So I'm just going to get going now. One thing I definitely want you to make sure, though, and be aware of when you're using these terms, first of all, I don't recommend using them. There's very few terms, jargon, bits of jargon that are actually appropriate, that actually don't make you sound, I don't want to say stupid, because you aren't stupid. You're intelligent enough to be learning a second language, so that right away sets you apart. But they make you, so much of the jargon that is out there makes you sound like you don't know what you're doing. And so much of my experience with people using jargon is that they do not know what they're doing. They don't know their jobs. They're not doing their jobs. And so they use the jargon to make it look like they do, to make themselves look important, like they are in with the in group. And but really, people just see through it, and it sets the wrong tone for you if you're trying to be noticed and get people to look beyond your language barrier, wherever your proficiency level is. So I do not recommend using jargon, but I'm doing this because you need to know the terms, since it is used all over the place in American business. Okay. So if you're in any kind of a meeting, you're going to come across these terms. Some of them you'll come across if it's more of a high level meeting, but you'll come across these at any rate. So, oh, and I started to say that just be aware of the words that are being bandied about. Uh, there's two that I just have such a terrible time with, but they are perfect examples of why I have a hard time with them. And I'll just get into them. The first one is actionable. Okay, so this word is used everywhere in business and what have you. You see, all through social media, 27 actionable tips you can take to have a productive day, or, however, this product includes actionable steps you can take to have better relationships. Meaning the use of it, meaning to something upon which you can take a step, make a step, make progress, to take action on, to be productive, to be what have you. But that's not what it means. Actionable is a legal term, and it means that something has happened that another person can file a legal action against you for doing this action, doing this thing. So it has nothing to do with you. I'm sorry, I'm seeing my candle. No, it's good. I'm sorry. I have my little Christmas tree. You can barely see it right there, the red sparkles. And I put the candle on so it would light it up. But sometimes I get concerned with the candles. This is a very active candle, but it's okay. So anyway, actionable is used incorrectly. Now, I have found that recently very recently, the past couple of years, that it has actually, this new definition has actually been added to the dictionaries, and that breaks my heart. But it's language develops over time. However, I still don't suggest using it because it's still too new, too recent. And if you want to stand out, you want to make sure that you're using words correctly. And even though the dictionary might say that it's okay, go back through the history, look up etymology, Etymology, I think that's how you spell it. Look up the etymology of a word and see how long this definition has been in use, and kind of look at the history of it so that you know what you're doing, so that you know you're using the words intelligently, because that's why you're learning English. You're trying to communicate all of your intelligence in a smart way, in an intelligent manner to the rest of the world, to the English-speaking world, and that's never going to happen if you're using the words incorrectly. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's get through some of these. So, the other one I wanted to say is grow. You hear grow your business, grow your email list, grow your career. Every single one of these is used incorrectly. You cannot grow a business. You can grow as a person, meaning you can mature in your strength of character. You can grow a tomato. You can, a child goes through growth spurts, meaning their body physically is growing and again maturing. But you cannot grow a business. You can't plant it in the ground and watch it grow. You can expand a business. You can increase your business. You can develop your business, build your business, all of these other words that are correct. But you yourself cannot grow a business. Your business can grow from your efforts. You spent, a quarter of your budget on marketing this quarter, and you have seen your business grow from this level to this level. But you cannot grow the business, and you cannot grow your email list. Again, you can increase your email list. You can expand your email list. So again, you really want to make sure that just because everybody else is using a word all over the place doesn't mean it's correct, and doesn't mean that it's going to make you sound intelligent. As I said in the earlier live stream, how many times have you heard your mother say, just because everyone else is doing it, do you really think that's a good idea? If everybody else jumped off a cliff, do you think that's smart for you to do it? Should you just follow along? So think about that when you're using jargon. So anyway, here we go. So ASAP, you're going to hear all over the place. And most of you know this. It just means as soon as possible. And clearly it can be, this is a useful piece of jargon where, you don't want to have to, get that to me as soon as possible, as soon as possible. So if you have to keep repeating that to, if you're a manager and you're repeating that to every employee that you talk to, that gets tedious. So get this to me ASAP or ASAP. You'll hear it both ways. The other one you'll hear is EOD. You might see it in an email usually, but you might hear it in speech as well. And it just means end of day, meaning I need this by the end of the business day. Before you go home, I need this. And that's something you need to pay attention to. The next one, you'll actually see this written, and this is, again, important. So many times you'll see it written as two separate words, or as one word, back burner, but it's two individual words. So again, if you want to present your intelligence, present your competence in your field, you want you want to make sure you're spelling things correctly. So it's back, BACK, burner, BURNER, two separate words. And what that means is it's a cooking term. You have your stove with your however many gas burners, and you've got some in the front and some in the back. The ones in the front are the ones that you're actively working on. You might be sauteing something here and grilling something here, and they're working at the same time. But then you might have something else, like you're boiling water for tea or something. Well, that you don't need to watch because it's going to take care of itself. So you put it on the back burner. You set it aside until you need it or till you're ready to work on it. So that's what that means, and that's where it comes from. Bandwidth. Bandwidth is a technical term. It's what is it? Your audio bandwidth. It might be an electrical term too, I'm not sure, but definitely audio. You've all seen the audio representations of what sound looks like. So bandwidth in business is all about how much you can take on, how much room you have in your time slot to get different projects done. And you might, maybe you just cannot take on anymore. Someone will your manager might come up and ask you, how much, what's your bandwidth as far as projects go? And you might say, I've got no more room, or I have no more bandwidth, or I've got, I've got some room. I can take that on. So if you're presented with that question, you'll know what they're talking about. And again, it's just a matter of how much can you fit in. I don't. I really, I really want to look that up. And this is another thing I love about looking into words and getting to know all these different things, is that it then triggers. Well, wait a minute. I'd like to learn more about that. And bandwidth. Let me look that up, and that helps me to not only understand the term better, it opens me up to a whole new area of language and study and information. So I'm a more interesting person, and it allows me to be able to explain it better in the future. But bandwidth definitely is how much can that sound wave, or that sound, whatever. I don't know the actual term, which is why I want to learn it now. How much can fit in that space? You'll hear brain dump. And brain dump is just, how you have sometimes there's just so much going on in your brain. You have so many ideas. You're all excited. Maybe you're starting a new project, or for work, or even personally, you want to decorate your room, or redo the kitchen or whatever. You have so many ideas that are going on in your head that you can't keep them all straight, and they kind of keep getting mixed up. So the term brain dump is the idea of taking the bucket that is your brain, that is full to the brim and kind of spilling over, and dumping it out in a place where you can spread everything out and look at it all. So not necessarily filled. Don't think of it as a liquid. Don't think of it as a bucket of water, but think of it as like a bucket of puzzle pieces. You have all these puzzle pieces in your head, and it's filling up and filling up. You need to dump those puzzle pieces out onto the table so you can sift and sort. Maybe you have 3 different puzzles all mixed together, and you need to separate out which is which. This is what a brain dump does. It gets everything out of your head onto paper, onto a spreadsheet, onto, a whiteboard, a chalkboard, whatever it is, where you can manipulate the things and move the pieces around and just get everything in order. So that's where that comes from. Then you have you'll hear the term, well, what does he bring to the table? What does she bring to the table? Tell me what you bring to the table. You'll hear that in an interview. And what that means is, Americans I'm sure other cultures do it too, but it's really huge here. And I can give you the background on that too. Potluck dinners. Back in the early days of, we were still struggling to survive and building our nation, building our communities, and you know, um, we lived so spread out from each other because we had farms and we needed to work the land, and we were so busy, and but the property, in order to have room to grow our vegetables and take care of our cattle and things like that, or farm animals, whatever, the farms were bigger. They were bigger, and so you had great distances between neighbors, and you might have to ride your horse for, a half a day or several hours just to get to town. So when people, and also supplies were not plentiful. So if people were going to gather together for a special occasion, say someone was getting married or what have you, the families more often than not couldn't provide enough food for everyone that they wanted to share the time with. So everybody just brought food for however many people they could afford to bring food for. And everybody would put the food on a table, and then people would go around and help themselves and sit and chat and whatever. So it was a great way to be social, to meet people, to get back in touch with your community and have some entertainment in the meantime. Uh, in a time when you couldn't afford to feed everybody, if everybody chips in, then there's enough for everyone to nourish themselves and enjoy and celebrate. So that's where that comes from. So if you're in an interview and they're saying, well, what do you bring to the table? They're saying, what is it that you're contributing? What can you contribute to the team, the project, the company, whatever that situation is? So that's where that comes from. And but you will definitely hear that in meetings as well. You know, the person running the meeting might say, well, this particular client brings XYZ to the table, but that client brings ABC to the table, and let's hash it out. Which do we think? How do we proceed, kind of a thing. So you'll hear it that way too. Another one you're going to hear is to break down the silos. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with what a silo is, but a silo is a tall, narrow building that stores grain. That's basically what I know it stores. It might store like coal, things like that, where you're trying to amass a quantity of it. And, so again, America started out as just every culture did, as a farming community. But again, because we're so young compared to the rest of the world, we had a little bit, um, we had some technology that other cultures don't have. So you might not have that term or that vision, or you might call it something else. But their silos were usually metal buildings, metal towers, metal tubes, I guess, with tops on them, domed tops, that would get filled. You'd put your harvest of grain if you were a farmer, and you were you grew your stuff for your family, but then you had your cash crop, and you would, so just say it's wheat, so you would harvest the wheat and store the grain in the silos, and you kept the different types of things separate. Or maybe you just had, maybe it was a bigger harvest than you anticipated, so you had most of your grain here and some more here. So when you're breaking down the silos, you're combining everything. You're taking it out of its individual containers, so to speak, and mixing it all together. So a lot of times that's used in meetings where you have different departments who, um, are coming together on this project to utilize the company's uh, not just resources, but specialties, I suppose, in better ways and in new ways that will help the clients, help your customers. And I've been on a few of these teams, and so it can be difficult. It can be a tricky situation if you're in meetings like this with different departments who, again, depending on the the individual company's culture, departments might be possessive of their ways of doing things and think that, well, we're the best department there ever was, not just in this company but ever, so we know everything and we're not going to change. Or you might have different departments that are so comfortable and happy to learn new things and work in new ways, etc. So you're going to hear this term about breaking down the silos, particularly in meetings or on projects where you have different departments that are having to work together. So it's super important during these types of times to be able to learn to communicate in a way that each department, all of the people in the different departments are going to be able to accept. Again, so this is not only learning effective it's not only learning the right English to use and um, presenting your ideas intelligently, but also learning about, this is where I've mentioned before about observing. When you're in meetings, do more observing than you do contributing initially until you know how people work best and receive information best, and um, how you can open them up to um, new ideas and new things. Observe, figure out how not only each individual person works, but look at how the departments work so that you can help break those down. So you can present your information, your expertise from your department to the other departments in a way that they can accept. And then they can say, oh, well, that might be a great idea, or okay, that would work well, but we have these restrictions over here, so how can we fix that? So you definitely going to need to know that term, and also learn that skill of how to work interdepartmentally. You're also going to hear the term core competencies. So your core is the center, the essential bits of, the core of an apple is where the seeds are held, and the seeds are where new apple trees grow from. So your core competencies, it can be used in two ways. You're going to hear this from human resources or your personnel department. You're going to hear it as far as each individual has certain skills and certain talents and certain gifts that are at their core that they're great with. So they're competent in these particular things. So each employee has specific core competencies, but also jobs have specific things that they need the person who fills the job to be able to do well. So each job has its own core competencies. So the things that the employee needs to be competent in to do this job. So that's what you'll hear there. A deck, if you hear people referring to, oh, can you, I still need to put that deck together. The deck is referring to a slideshow deck, and they call it a deck because each slide, think of it as a card in a deck, and you can shuffle them and rearrange them and whatever. So that's what that means. So it's basically a PowerPoint presentation. And then you're going to hear deep dive. So some of these are self-explanatory, but again, this is obviously a scuba diving term. because a scuba diver goes underwater to whatever depths are needed to find the information or explore and discover what is needed. So if you're taking a deep dive into something, you're really looking into it, and you're taking your time to really discover all the treasures of that particular thing, the project, the idea, or whatever. So that's what that means. Deliverables. So deliverables are just the things that need to get done and be delivered. Think of that. You're delivering certain things in the project. If you're in charge of, a product launch, and you're on the marketing team, well, you might have to deliver the written copy for the ads. You might have to deliver the graphic design. So, and that overall part that you need to deliver has its own set of things within it that need to be completed in order to deliver the big project. So that's what that stands for. Um, Evangelist. You're going to hear this a lot in marketing meetings, certainly. If people are talking about evangelists, what that means is those are customers who are super loyal, who love the product, who do tons of word of mouth, spreading the news about your company by word of mouth and bringing new people to your company. And that comes from, the religious side of things where, people believe so deeply in the faith that they are evangelizing that they go out and bring people into the faith. So that's where that comes from. On board. So you're going to hear this, and it's become a verb, but it's become a verb. Um, it's a term from transportation. If you're boarding a train, you're going on board the train or on board the ship or on board, back in the days of wagons and carriages, let's get on board the stagecoach. So what that means is that it's generally a human resources term, and it's all about getting you settled, bringing you into the company. So think of the company as a ship. You're bringing the new employee on board the ship, getting them settled, showing them to their room, the office, the giving all the policies and all those technical things and managerial things that everybody needs to know in order to be a good employee of the company, to know how things work. You've given the tour, things like that. That's all part of onboarding. Um, so you'll hear that term in many forms. And then a hard stop. If you hear someone talk about a hard stop, it just means this is our absolute deadline. We cannot go beyond this. So, there are some things where if you're doing a project, you might schedule in a cushion of time. So in case things go wrong, this is the deadline you're reaching for, so that you have time in between to fix anything that might go wrong. But this is the day. This is the hard stop. This has to go out to the public on this particular day, and it has to be done by then. That's your hard stop. You might also have it. You'll hear it in. Again, people who want to sound important might be in the middle of a conversation and they might not know what they're talking about, or they haven't done the job yet and they're trying to deflect. Or maybe they actually do have a meeting and you've called just before they're headed out. You might hear, "Oh, I have a hard stop at 10:30," because, for whatever reason, if they have a meeting at 10:30, then it's legitimate, but they might just, be saying, "Oh, I have a hard stop. I in 5 minutes," just because they don't wanna talk to you anymore. So, you'll hear that in a couple of different ways or situations, I should say. Um, let's see. We are already Can you believe we're already at 34 minutes? So I have a lot more to go. Um, Leverage is just, you know, using something that you have to get something else that you want from somebody. So, you might have, oh, I have this, I don't know, say you want to get someone to collaborate with you, or I'm trying not to use a negative way. I'm trying not to use like a blackmail-y kind of way. But well, blackmail is leverage. I have this little secret about you that you don't want people to know, and so I won't reveal it if you do this for me. That's leverage. But I was trying to think of a nice way. Oh, hey, I found this super duper program that would be helpful to you. Do you think you could help me out over here in this way? So that would be leverage. Um, a one pager is just one page summary of a project or whatever it is. So you'll hear that, but that one speaks for itself. It's a one pager, um, just one page summary. Traction is used a lot, and it just means, if you're stuck in the mud, if your car is stuck in the mud, the wheels are just spinning and you're not going anywhere. So if something has traction, that means it can go far. So if this project has traction, or, say you're a publisher, and someone comes to you with a book idea. Ooh, this book has traction. I can see it taking off. So let's work with this author to publish. So that's all that means. A white paper is a government. Generally, it started off as a government summary, or I guess a summary of a particular policy, or maybe it was a bill or some sort of legislation that was someone's proposing, or that has already happened and you're trying to get the word out. It refers to just the sheets of white paper that explain it, without all the expensive bindings and, photos and all that stuff, without all the fancy presentation. It's just the stack of white paper that explains it. So that's all it is. It's basically, again, a summary report, that's just not expensively done at all. There's no flash to it. Just here's the news. And then, where are we? So herding cat. Okay, so those ones, the ones we just talked about, were ones you're going to hear the most often. The next ones are metaphors or analogies that are used all the time. So, herding cats, cats are independent. And so you can't just make them sit and stay like you can with dogs. Dogs want to please you. Cats don't. Cats have their own mind and they just do what they want to do. So if it's a difficult task to do, or if you're dealing with a team that just doesn't work well together, for example, then you can say, oh, it's like herding cats. You're so frustrated because you can't gather everything together and make it work well together. Can't make it behave. Jump the shark, you're going to hear a lot. And that comes from the American TV show Happy Days. There was a character, Fonzie, in it, and he was the cool guy. He was kind of the leader of the pack. He was, he drove a motorcycle, wore a leather jacket, and the show takes place in the 1950s, when everything was just, really, that was a good time in America. It was prosperous. Everybody, was comfortable. Home life was, pictured to be wonderful. Things were plentiful, not much to worry about. And he was, the bad boy. And there was, towards the end of the series, um, the cast, the people, the characters were on vacation, and I forget what the whole story was, but there was a shark. It was, on the coast. I think it was Florida somewhere. They had all gone to Florida as a big trip. And there was a shark in the water, and someone had challenged him to, they had somehow corralled the shark in this netted area, And there was a big challenge to jump over the netted area to see if you could make it. And that would mean that I don't know what the reason for it was, whether it was simply a dare or whether there was, like a prize or something. But that was the big thing. Can you jump the shark? Can you make it over this huge hurdle, this dangerous hurdle without, because if you don't make it, then you're in the water with the shark, and that's not a good idea. That's a bad situation. So that's where that comes from. You can actually look up the video. They do show the clip, just to give you that visual, but that's what that means. Um, and the next one you have is low-hanging fruit. So just think about it. If something is so ripe and it's, right there in front of you, a client, an opportunity, whatever, you're not going to just, and you're hungry, or, you will be hungry. You're not just going to leave that there. You want to pick that fruit because it's basically falling in your lap is what it's talking about. Make hay while the sun shines is a phrase you're going to hear. And what that means is, again, a farming term. Haying is where you harvest the, you cut down the grasses uh, that you've already picked, you've already harvested the grain off of. So again, while the sun is shining, you want to cut those grasses down at the end of the season because that's going to be food for your animals, because you can't do it in the rain. If the hay gets wet, it gets moldy and it's destroyed. So you need to do it while the sun is shining. So that means, just get the job done. Here's your perfect opportunity. Get it done. Put it in the barn. It's all safe. There you go. So you're not actually growing the stuff, you're harvesting it while the conditions are prime to do that. Let's see. Move the needle. So this talks about making progress, really, is what you're saying. We've got to move the needle on these email signups, or we've got to move the needle on sales. What can we do? And so just think of, I guess, maybe filling up the tank. You see, you have different needles on the car. Well, nowadays it's all digital. I don't know, but back in the days when there were needles, you go from empty to full. So you're moving the needle, and what can we do to get that tank full? Put more gas in. Okay, that kind of a thing. Over the wall. That's something that was new to me, but it has been around for a while. And what that means is that, so you've got your product, you've got your in product development. And so when you're in product development, all of that, those ideas and stuff, they're inside the walls of the company. Um, and so there's a wall around it. So the outside, the public doesn't know about it. When you give the order for it to go over the wall, or maybe information about it leaked and it went over the wall, that means it went out into the public. So either it was done on purpose, and you want it to now be made known, or something untoward happened and it got out before it should have, but it gets out to the public is what that means. A pain point is, I believe that comes from, well, if you have a sore tooth, your dentist is going to poke around and find out where it hurts. And that particular point is going to be, that's your pain point. This is the thing that's bothering you. This is the thing you want to fix. This is the pain you want to stop. So in a business, that's your solution. You need to find a solution to that because people want that solution. Therefore, there's your moneymaker. There's your prime idea that people will pay for. We have a few more. I'm trying to make this shorter, but these are important for you to know, so I'm not going to stress out too much. So here we have push the envelope, and what it's come to mean is if you're pushing the envelope, you're really on the edge. You're on the cutting edge. Um, you're out in front of people. The technology, oh, they're pushing the envelope with the technology there. But what it comes from, what it stems from, is the act of bribing someone. The money would be put into an envelope. You'd meet with them in a cafe or someplace, and you'd push the envelope towards them, hoping that they would take it and accept your bribe. So it does follow that, oh, that's kind of a risky thing. That's a daring thing to do. So if you're pushing the envelope, not only are you out there on the edge, but you're taking a risk, and because bribery is illegal, if you're pushing the envelope to someone hoping they'll take the bribe, you've got a lot to lose if they don't take it, or if they're the wrong person, if they're as you see in the movies all the time, if you're bribing an undercover policeman or something, well, there you go, you're caught, now you go to jail. You've got a lot to lose if you're pushing the envelope. But that's where it comes from. So it's about risk, and it's about, the willingness to take that risk, I suppose, too. So if people talk about running something up the flagpole, that's again, um, relatively self-explanatory. You're taking this idea and you're, well, I guess maybe it isn't self-explanatory, but the flagpole is representing the hierarchy within the company, or the chain of command in the project, or however. So you're running that idea up through all the levels to the highest level, is what that means. We're almost to the end. So here if you're talking about moving the goalposts, you're talking about, usually either it's to give yourself more time on a project so that you can reach your goal. Maybe things are taking longer than you expected, and you need, maybe there's technology issues that need to be solved, or maybe for whatever reason, maybe there's just more work than you anticipated. So you need to push your deadlines out to a point where you can have everything done in order to reach that goal. You need more time, you need more distance between you and the goal to make all the moves you need to make. So that's what that is. But you could also say you're done ahead of time. You can move it forward. Generally, it's talking about pushing it out so that you have more time to accomplish it, but it could be, oh, let's move those goalposts in because we're finished, that kind of thing. If you're talking about skin in the game, it means that you're actually in there playing, and it usually refers to financial. You've invested so much money in this product, or in this project, in this collaboration. Say, you've got a lot of the level of um, skin in the game that you have is determined by how much you've invested personally into this. So it's usually financial, but it could be all of your time and effort, etc. Hey, I've got a lot of skin in the game in this. I've given up everything to make this happen, and you can't pull out on me now. That kind of a thing. If you are thrown under the bus, or if you throw someone under the bus, again, that should trigger the fact that that's not a good thing. It means that you've blamed someone else, and you've made them the scapegoat, or you were made the scapegoat if something goes wrong on a project, or if a customer is unhappy and you've been working as a team, and the other person or people in the team um, blame you for it, then they've thrown you under the bus. And, because now management looks at you as the problem, And this happens a lot in team projects, even in school. When you were kids, if you were given a group project, and there's always that person who doesn't do the job and lets other people, you know, do all the work, and they try to take the credit if it goes well. But if it doesn't go well, hey, I had nothing to do with it. This is all them. That's throwing someone under the bus. Trimming the fat, again, it's a term from a butcher shop. You take the fat off of the meat to make it a better cut. Um, that what that does, what that's referring to, is basically laying people off. We got to trim the fat here. Um, if you're talking about human resources, it can be used in other areas. That's the most common place you're going to hear it. And then the final one is a silver bullet. So a silver bullet refers to the easiest possible way to get this result, or to remove this problem that you thought you could never remove. So, like Dracula, the silver bullet. Dracula's a big problem, right? And that character is a big problem. And the only thing that could eliminate this problem is a silver bullet to the heart. So that's where that term comes from. So, yeah, if you can find the silver bullet to, make this thing happen that you've got a lot of skin in the game on, and move the needle, then you're golden. So you can see how you can use all these different terms, and it can be funny, and it can actually mean something. But other times, if people just throw them out too often, it just doesn't mean anything, and people just glaze over and they don't take you seriously, which is why I really encourage you not to use them. But do the best you can. Anyway, this has been, I think, the longest one ever, but it is gonna have to do you until the new year. So, and it's important. You need to know these terms if you're gonna do business in America, or with Americans. So I really hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I'm sorry I don't know them all, but if it's a holiday that you're gonna come up with in this season, well, happy holidays, and I will see you in the new year, and hopefully with some really super duper announcements to make. All right. All right. You have a wonderful day. Bye bye.